in line with the reality of the kind of results you can actually get. So you have to understand, you're picking your spots. You're not just using ads for anything. You're using ads to move the needle on the right metrics that you care most about, and doing it in a thoughtful way using, the proper strategies.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and the wisdom of how they sold their first million.
So, Andy, why do you think that first-time founders don't take marketing and sales seriously? And however, yesterday I have an interview with someone in the health tech space, which is she's just a doctor, right? And technically, she didn't have she's not an entrepreneur, right? She's a physician, and wow, she understood this part that I describe it to you. But most of the entrepreneur, most of the first-time founders, better than me. You work with them every day. They come there, and when they landed, they are so much product lowers and sales and marketing there. Well, I don't know if I need this. I want to pay very little. I don't want to put some effort. I don't want to spend more. My product is good. Don't worry about it. People are gonna buy it. I put a lot of time and effort into it. So why do you think that this is happening, and how can we help startup founders to change the dynamic, because they want the business to work? They definitely need to change the dynamic. Do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons there. So one, I think oftentimes founders, they fall in love with their product too soon. So it's early on, they think, hey, this is the perfect product, solves the perfect problem. I just have to, get it out there, and people will come and buy. And ultimately, those first early purchases, that's the reason why that's so important, is because what you're going to be learning is the first product you release is probably not where you're ultimately going to get and where you're going to end up scaling your business.
Tell me about it.
So it's so important that scaling the experimental process and figuring out what's actually going to solve the problem, and really what the real problem that you're solving is, can only come from putting something out into the market, listening to customer feedback, and pivoting and changing. You always hear people say, hey, create a product that solves your own problem. And I think that's important. That's a great starting point. But don't ever forget too that you need to be looking at, customer feedback and
to take that product and solve this problem for somebody else. You have to do a few iterations. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's how you know when you actually have something, is that once you have people who are willing to pay for it, that's the market telling you that, hey, there's something here, and that's the product. But then also, as you get into sales and marketing, one really important factor we think about in our world, ROAS is a big number that people talk about, and it's return on ad spend. Essentially, if I put up one ad dollar, I put $1 into ads, how many dollars in revenue do I get back from that? And I think a lot of times early founders don't realize how low those multiples often are. So if you really want to scale, and if you're talking about reaching $1 million, you're not going to be putting in, $100 in ad spend and getting, $1,000, $10,000 worth of purchases coming back.
Absolutely, you have to be realistic, right? Have to make sense.
Exactly. So we typically look for, it's different for every business and different in every industry, but at a minimum, you're going to be looking in like a three range, probably maybe a 4 range is kind of what could be scalable. The big companies, the people that you're out there competing with, oftentimes are in like a 2x range. So they're putting in, $1,000, $10,000, whatever it is, and they're getting back only 2x of that in revenue. And so as a founder, the first thing you should be, as your head's kind of churning, like if I'm essentially putting 50% of my purchase value into acquisition costs and marketing spend, you've got to really understand your margins, and there's got to be margin to be able to spend that. So your price that you're selling the item for has to be high enough to accommodate that marketing spend that goes into it. So I think that's one of the big reasons to your question of why first-time founders, are a little bit afraid of marketing or don't kind of get into it, is because they think to themselves, hey, I'm going to put out $1,000 in ad spend and I'm going to get $10,000 or $20,000 in revenue from it. they go and they hit the market and that's not what they find, and then they immediately say, oh, advertising doesn't work for me. This isn't a thing. It's, it takes time, it takes experimentation, figuring it out over time. And ultimately, it's not, there's no magic bullets here. It's not like you go and you run your ad and all of a sudden, a million profit rolls in. It's, hey, you're going to run your ads. They may or may not work the first time. You're gonna tweak, iterate. You're measuring the results really well, and you're gonna figure out what does work, and then slowly start to scale. And I think the founders who haven't really been through it before, don't understand what a process that is and what work it takes.
I'm telling you, pay-per-click, the one of the most powerful strategies out there, and I shared with you before the broadcast. I'm a big fan of it because I think one of the pioneers. I've been using this since I'm in big, like talking maybe 18 years ago, right? When this pay-per-click, I remember in London. So we had these red buses, and they put advertising. Okay, Netflix movie, and yeah, it's okay. However, there is a tiny problem with those advertising. You have all these red buses in London going around on Netflix, or go to see this movie at the cinema. But how can you measure exactly how many people attended to a cinema just by seeing the ad in the buses? They had to do a ballpark number, an average. There is not an exact way to measure that, unless that they send on the ad to a website that have a pay-per-click, right? Then you can measure exactly how much you spend in these ad buses. And so it was a revolution in terms of advertising the pay-per-click in the different platforms, right?
Yep.
Because I've been doing it for a long time, it has become expensive. The reason why it become expensive because more and more people start to using it, right? So what do you say to the statement? You talk to people out there and say, well, pay-per-click doesn't work anymore, it's too expensive. If, for give an example, any events, we do events all over the world, and we used to fill the rooms in Singapore, from London, right? So just using pay-per-click, we were doing advertising. When we arrived to Singapore, the room already was full, right? So always that.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. Oh, it was amazing. Oh, it is amazing, right?
Yep.
So the reason why it's expensive is because people don't really know what they're doing, and they're not targeting the right keywords. One of the reasons that it's more expensive, I already know, which is more and more people are using it, and the thing works by bidding, right? So if everybody wants to target entrepreneurs, of course, I interviewed 500 million in this podcast, so everybody's looking for target millionaires, entrepreneur, whatever. Of course, all these become expensive
Yep.
in pay-per-click because everybody's targeting the same people. However, what is the myth between pay-per-click? It doesn't work anymore because it has become too expensive.
Yeah.
What's your
Yeah.
message?
There's a few
The
things
people
going
are
on
saying,
there.
I'm not saying it. People say, right?
Yeah, you called it out great. I mean, there's a lot more competition in the marketplace these days.
A lot of
Another big
everybody's using it, right? That's why.
Exactly. And then with privacy challenges too, it's much harder to measure too. I'm out here telling you that the most important thing is that you're measuring really tightly where your ad spend is going and what happens when people click on your ad. But that's harder these days with different privacy regulations, cookie blocking. There's a lot of different things that prevent some of that end-to-end measurement. So that means that with those two kind of factors working together, it can be more challenging, one, to profitably run your ads and get purchases coming in, and on the other hand, to measure that on the back end and understand how things are going. All that does is it makes the process more complex. So you can no longer, like you said, just kind of throw up quick, easy ad first try, and all of a sudden you just get in front of a
Oh,
bunch of
before used to be a
entrepreneurs.
piece of cake.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, Because I
Now
was doing it myself.
you've got to understand there's strategies in play, and you have to understand how to get the right message in front of the right people, and then on the back end to be able to measure it and say, hey, now I've got these people coming to my site, maybe 70%, 80% I can measure what actually happened, as opposed to where I used to be 100%. I know 100% exactly where they came from, exactly what happened. So those two things, what it does, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work anymore. It just means that it's a little bit more complex, and you have to understand, what your goals are, how you're measuring it, and I think to that point too, you can't have unrealistic expectations. So it's no longer going to just be throw up a quick and easy ad and immediately profit comes out the back end. Like I was just telling you, the people's expectations on the front end oftentimes are not in line with the reality of the kind of results you can actually get. So you have to understand, you're picking your spots. You're not just using ads for anything. You're using ads to move the needle on the right metrics that you care most about, and doing it in a thoughtful way using, the proper strategies.
Follow us for more interviews with the world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.